Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we are playing the 10th and final scenario of the Gloomhaven Kickstarter second reprint or print Kickstarter, and it's called Into the Unknown is the actual mini campaign we've been playing. This is the 10th one, and it's called the Panic Room specifically. And the reason we are here is because of the decision path by you guys based on your Board Game Geek vote to investigate the cave. The goal for this particular scenario is that all characters must escape through the exit A. So I'll give you guys kind of a high-level overview, but essentially we got to get from the far left to the far right. We'll go jump right into the introduction here, but I'll do a quick explanation of what you're seeing in front of you just so you guys can understand. So essentially what this is a door. We'll get to more about the hit points on that, but it's a door that we need to break through in order to get into this second half of the map and get to, I believe, one of these 5 spots in the back here. There's also a treasure tile here, something we can land on in order to grab for the end of the scenario. The stalagmites that I've added here are just for dramatic effect. Same with the rocks. Hopefully they add a little bit of spice to the scenario. And then these guys are all positioned correctly based on a 2-player game, which we are playing solo open-handed. So we have a Kreger in the top corner here, hiding in amongst the terrain. And then we have a Tinker down here in the corner. Some coins have been littered around as well, probably to entice us to go pick them up. What we know, I guess we'll talk about the monsters in a second. We'll jump into the introduction actually for this scenario first and let you guys know what this one's all about. So let me see if I can get this to focus. There we go. So let me read this to you. It takes some effort to navigate safely through the crags surrounding the cliff face and find a place to moor your boat. But once it is done, you eagerly make your way into the cave looking for one last adventure. And in this regard, the cave does not disappoint. After navigating through a series of narrow spaces and sharp descents, you come to a large open cave whose walls flicker at the edge of your torchlight. And at the far end of the space, you see a figure you'd recognize anywhere as he fiddles with a number of large sacks of gold. Your arrival catches his attention, but he looks up with a face of pure shock and bafflement. "It can't be," Barty mutters, trying to get his bearings. "Like a bad penny you lot are. I think this was the work of the dark spirits that linger here, trying to play a trick on me, but even they could not be so cruel." Barty hefts his bag of treasure in one hand while his other reaches for a switch on the wall. "It's a shame I like this hideout, but I guess I'll have to find someplace else to store all my money I got for selling you to the orchids." He presses the switch and sprints away from you down the corridor. So that would be essentially bolting down this door, or down this corridor here. You move to give chase, but are suddenly thrown to the ground as the entire cave begins to vibrate wildly. The passageway behind you collapses completely, and in front of you, a large boulder falls from the ceiling, blocking off Barty's escape route as well. So there's the boulders closing the doors behind us, and the boulder falling, blocking off the path to get to Barty. And if that wasn't enough, you feel the presence of an evil energy. Dark shapes begin to rise up out of the shaking earth in anger, where you need to get out of this room before you are buried in the rubble. So there are some special rules in this one that are kind of interesting and very thematic. So the special rules in this one says, now when it relates to the crystal, it's really speaking about the crystal token, which is a stalagmite token, really, in essence. And really, it's the boulder, I think is what Isaac meant in this situation, because the boulder is what fell here, and it is labeled as 1. So when he's talking about the crystal 1, he's really talking about the boulder. It's considered a locked door that is open when destroyed. It has C times and then a whole bunch of fun math in there, so you do that first. So at the end of the day, our characters are 2, and our level, or L, is scenario level 2. So you do the inner math first. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 4 is 8, times 2 characters is 16 hit points. So when destroyed, replace it with the corridor tile and read 1. So we just need 16 damage on this guy in order to break it open. The only problem with that is it sounds really easy, but the escape occurs when all characters are either standing on an exit A. So like I said before, you got to be standing over here in one of these 5 spots. And then it says, or you can become exhausted, but you just have to make sure you're occupying one of those exit spaces in order for it to count, essentially. The really big thing about this scenario that, now I'm going to kind of give you guys a heads up on how much I screwed up on this. Not only did I have technical difficulties with my setup tonight in terms of just with my camera and stuff like that, but actually I'd played a couple rounds of this to start and realized I had been playing this particular part of the rules wrong and wanted to ensure that I did this correctly. It says shuffle number tokens 2 to 10 and place them face down next to the map tiles. at the end of the first 9 rounds. Now, I read that to be at the end of the round 9. So I read that too quickly, and I didn't do any of these flipping of these things. And what they do essentially is drop, and that's why there's all these numbers. They drop random, like essentially boulders from the ceiling on the ground, which can hit you. And I hadn't done that for a few rounds, and then realized my mistake and was like, oh my goodness, I need to refilm this along with the camera battery issues I was having, which I am rectifying through purchasing a second battery and a third battery and some other plugins as well. But anyway, I had some technical difficulties, so hopefully you guys can bear with me. I do apologize that I'm not uploading a string of like 4 or 5 videos like I normally do or promised to do for tonight. I'll probably be stringing them from now until Thursday to try to get them all out to you. But this will at least give you a taste of the scenario in a couple turns. So anyway, let's get back to this special rule. So again, you do your numbered tokens 2 to 10. I place them face down in a pile and I put them all out here, so I don't know what the order is. At the end of each round from 1 until 9, you flip over 1 numbered token at random, place the obstacles and all the hexes on the end tile. This is the end tile right here. And then correspond to the number of the token. If the number covers 1 hex, place a single hex. If it covers 2, you cover 2, that kind of thing, back and forth. So it can go all the way up to 3 at the biggest. Then it says any figure that's in the hex where the obstacle is placed suffers double the trap damage, and is forced to move into adjacent hex. If there are no viable adjacent hexes to move into, that figure dies, and if a monster or character summon or is exhausted. So there's lots of bad things that can happen there. So essentially, if there's no viable adjacent hexes to move into, that figure dies or is exhausted. So pretty nasty, really. Now it says at the end of the 10th round, the end tiles are removed completely from the board, and any figure still on it dies or is exhausted. So that's pretty nasty. So essentially we need to get through this and be off this tile by round 10. So we need to be in here at least, because otherwise this whole end tile disappears, almost falls apart and gets completely submerged in rocks, and that's just all bad. So that essentially sums up the rules of this one. So we're going to jump right into it, see if I can cram in as much as I can into this episode. But first, we want to make sure we get our battle cards. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the deck in half. We're going to pick some battle cards for our characters. The Tinkerer is going to get the Hoarder. We get the Streamliner, the Workhorse, and the Pacifist. Okay, so Hoarders loot 5 or more money tokens during the scenario. The Workhorse has gained 13 or more experience. Now, this is a tougher one. You know what? This might be the type of this. I kind of want to go for this, but that's a lot of experience. I've never really seen myself do that. So I think Hoarder is the safest of the two, at least in the way the Tinker currently has been playing. In terms of the Craighart, we've got the Pacifist, so kill 3 or fewer monsters. That's not likely to happen. We've got 5 on the board, and I think there'll be some more in here. So trying to reduce him to kill 3 or fewer is probably dangerous for our survival. Having 5 or more total cards in your hand and discarding this scenario, that's also really tough. To be honest, he's kind of in a tight spot because this is going to be one that's going to be just draining cards out of our hand if we get hit by these boulders as they come down from the ceiling. So it's going to be tough to do either, but I'm going to go with the Streamliner, even though I know the Pacifist one I could definitely probably do, but then the Tinker would be taking the brunt of everything, which would be very, very dicey. So that essentially covers the battle cards for everything. So now what I'm going to do is jump right into the first turns for everything. So the first thing that I want to do, really thinking about things, is that we're 4 away. The biggest thing to take into consideration with these guys is we've got a Night Demon here. The Night Demons that are on here are all regular, so they're on the left side of this card. But you'll notice that they have an attack of 4, and their movement is 4, and their damage level is 7. But it says anytime there's attack, like when they're being attacked, essentially, attackers gain disadvantage. So every time I try to attack them, I'm going to be drawing double the cards, unless I do something like use my Eagle Eye Goggles to kind of negate it or even it out to nothing. But either way, Night Demons are going to be tough to defeat. And then the Deep Terrors, and just so you guys are aware as well, my characters are both at level 4, so based on the prior upkeep video, but that still keeps us at a monster level 3 and a scenario level 2, for solo anyway. Yeah, so the Deep Terrors, they're a little different. They don't shoot from range, and that's another thing I'd noticed too with the Night Demons is there's no range on these guys as I'm seeing yet. So this guy retaliates. He has now we're dealing with the elite versions of them, so they're going to have 8 health and they're going to attack pretty viciously, but they don't come chasing after us, at least not yet. So that's good. So let's just move into it, see what we can do. So my first strategy would be basically to try to pin this guy to the ground, because we know this guy's not going to move and he can only do something next, adjacent in most cases. So I'm going to try to target this guy with an attack that potentially stuns him or keeps him stuck in place. So the one that makes the most sense is probably the stun shot. Even though it's a super weak attack, it's going to give us a guaranteed stun on him, which is never a bad thing. Now the thing is, we need to be in range in order to do that, and as of right now we're not. We need to get some distance in order to pick up things. Remember also, we got the comfortable shoes instead of the boots of Sterling from previous videos. So with this particular one, every time we use the bottom action of a card for a regular move 2, we actually gain a extra movement, so we're moving 3. So that's pretty handy too. So if we're going to do a ranged attack on this guy with the Tinker, the real question would be, what can we do to really just, I guess, boost it or do anything in addition to it? Now, one thing that I do like, and would make some sense, is probably just to try to move up as close as possible. So let's try to use a 76 as the movement card, and then we'll use this for the stun shot. So that's going to be what I'm going to pick for the Tinker. Now going for the Craighart, similar situation. Want to go after this guy first as the most lethal of the 2 enemies that I have to tackle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Craighart's cards, which I've spread out here, and hopefully they're not too overlapping, so you can see what we've got for options. Now, if we run up to them and we attack them, we have to remember that, well, the one thing too is, and I've done this before, I am kind of a huge fan of my Retaliate. I really do like it because I find it comes in handy, especially against melee characters, and being that these guys, especially these 3, are going to be very overly aggressive and trying to attack us, and their movement is super high. They got a 4 before they even pull their cards, so they're going to be coming at us real quick. This might be a really handy card to have. The only other downside to that is, in order for me to make a useful attack against them, I need to be within a decent range to do so. And technically, based on what I'm seeing here anyway, I'm not seeing too many options in terms of doing anything nasty, although there's this rock slide one that's kind of interesting. This one's a very interesting card, this rock slide. It says create 3 single hex obstacles in empty hexes within range 4. All allies and enemies adjacent to the created obstacle suffer 2 damage. So the crazy thing is, you're creating 3 single hex obstacles. You're putting them wherever you want, and then all the allies and enemies adjacent to a created obstacle are going to suffer 2 damage. So that's really powerful. And being that I can put it at a range 4, I could drop 1 here. I can go 1, 2, 3. I can't get it to here, but I can go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then even 1, 2, 3, 4, and build like almost a wall around these guys, which wouldn't be a bad thing. So maybe, maybe that's what I'll do. Not to say that that's exactly the best move, but I'm going to try it. Now the other thing I can think about too is the volatile bombs. You got to remember, I've got that ability to take to do a volatile bomb attack, but maybe it's not the best time to do that just yet. Oh wait, I'll see if these guys will likely come up to me more so than anything else. So with the Craighart, I don't know, we'll see how this pans out. So I got 20 and a 46, so let's go ahead and flip our cards and see what we get. Oh my gosh, 15 for the Night Demon, so that's super early. Looks like they're gonna hit us pretty bad too. And then an 84 here for the Deep Terrors. Okay, so it looks like the Night Demons are guaranteed to go first here. So let's go look at the very first Night Demon here. He's got himself a move keyword and an attack keyword. So essentially he's going to do his best to get to me. Number 1, he's 100% focused on the Craighart based on distance. So his movement is going to be a clean 4, and he can go 1, 2, 3. So he's definitely beside me there in the corner. His attack is going to come at me at a -1, and the attack up here is a 4. So we're going to be at a 3 level, and then we're going to go ahead and flip this. And it ends up being a 0, so that's good. So it ends up only being 3 damage, so I think I'll take that hit from the Craighart down to 13. Too bad we didn't have Retaliate on him now. It also says all adjacent enemies and allies suffer a damage. So that's really inconvenient, because that means I also get hit by another damage from just being adjacent to him after all is said and done. So now I'm down to 12, so that was kind of a little bit of a painful attack. Then also what they would have done here to generate the night element is they would have consumed any available element, but there is none, so that won't happen. So we'll move over here to the second one, who's obviously going to move to get adjacent to the Tinkerer and do the exact same type of attack with a 4, -1 is a 3, and we're going to get a +1. So that ends up being a 4 damage attack against the Tinkerer. So the question becomes, I do have what's called a shield, or a steel ring, sorry, and it says when damaged by an attack, gain 4 shield for the attack. I could use this now as a way of negating some damage, seeing as it would completely block this Night Demon. So maybe it makes sense to get rid of this now, but this might be the kind of card I want to keep for a situation where I'm going to actually die. So I'll take the damage for now, regrettably, but we'll see how things go. So he's down to 8 now. Hopefully that makes, you guys can see that clearly. So that's essentially that. And then of course this guy here, he's going to go basically based on initiative, because the difference between these two in terms of movement is the same. And it looks like the Tinker is initiating earlier, so he's going to go towards him. So he's going to do his most efficient route to him, and he can move a total of, being a regular Night Demon, 4. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. He can only make it to here. So the good thing about that is he's going to be bunched up with him, but also he's not going to be able to attack from where he currently is. So that's actually a massive plus as well. So because he's a melee character, he's useless. So he's stuck there. And that's essentially it for them. So now the other thing I forgot about too is the number 2 guy did have the all adjacent enemies and allies suffer damage. So technically the Tinker would take an additional damage from being beside him. So kind of a few nasty hits there off the beginning. But now we get to go. So that's a plus. So here's a Tinker. Now things have changed. The map has changed substantially. He's got some guys coming his way, and that's a bad thing. So what he's going to probably do now is focus his ranged stun attack on 1, 2, 3. Oh, shoot. So his range 3 actually, 1, 2, yeah, he's no longer going to be able to do much. He's going to be in trouble here. We're going to have him move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this right here for a move 2. It's this basic basic movement of 2, which is this one right up here. We're also going to use the Comfortable Shoes ability, which freely allows him to add an extra move to his move 2 of a basic movement. So he's going to go 1, 2, and maybe here for 3. So that way he's within range 3 of this guy. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to do an attack, and I'm going to do it from range. I'm going to stun him. At least that's what I'm going to try to. So I'm discarding this card because we already used it for move. We're going to try to stun this guy and see what happens. Now, remember, we are fighting the Night Demons, and attackers are disadvantaged with them. So I have to pull 2 cards and hope, and I essentially go with the worst of the 2. This is a rolling modifier, so we have to complete the rolling modifier until it is finally done. So there we go. There's the run of 1, and then there's the other. So essentially, we'd be taking the worst of the 2, and the worst of the 2 in this case is just the -1, because this is a benefit for us, this rolling modifier with muddle. So we just get the -1, which is too bad because it basically just negates all the damage we were going to do. So that's kind of inconvenient for us. So we miss out on all of that thanks to them. So they're very nasty, but we do always get the stun, right? The actual negative condition always applies. So we'll go ahead and take that stun. So at least he's going to be kind of stuck there for his next turn, because we've already done the next demon, so it'll affect him next round. So now we'll go with the Cragheart. So the Cragheart's got a couple options here. And as per normal, what I've normally done is thrown the Imposing Strike on. You guys are probably familiar with me doing that quite a bit. But it doesn't always work with range guys all that well. But these guys being melee, the majority of them anyway, it's especially being as tough as they are, we need to get some damage on them. So this makes a lot of sense. This one here, creating 3 hex obstacles in empty hexes with range 4. And then all allies and enemies adjacent to them are suffering 2 damage. This is a really cool ability, except for the fact that if we fill up this board too much, it's going to be tough to move around, but I'm going to still do it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to place the opposing strike so that he's ready to retaliate when these guys start attacking him. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the create 3 single hex obstacles. So I've actually gone ahead and grabbed a couple legitimate rocks here, because I want to make this scenario as thematic as possible. We're going to be creating some rock hexes all over the place, or obstacles all over the place here. So I obviously don't want to hit myself, and I have to do it within range 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, whenever I drop one of these, according to this card, it is going to create an obstacle, and the adjacent ally or enemy is going to take 2 damage. So as of right now, this guy can take up to 8 damage without dying. This guy can take up to 7 without dying. So I could fill all this around, but you're never allowed to block off a path. You always have to leave a path to get out. You can't completely block off anything. So it would make sense for me to probably drop one here. So I'm going to drop one here, which is going to cause 2 damage to the very first Night Demon, which I'm going to put up top here. Then I'm going to drop a second one, which is going to drop right here. It's also going to cause 2 more damage to him. And then I'm going to drop a third one here, which is going to hit this guy, the elite one. And he is an elite 1, so he's going to drop right here. He needs 8 to die. So that was a pretty efficient attack. And then on top of it, we get an XP, and we also get to bump up our leaf element. Now, the reason this card is so powerful is it's a level 4 card, as you can see. So it's definitely not something to... and the really cool thing about it is you don't lose it. It's just discarded when it's done. So that's essentially that. Now we do the Deep Terror. So now we've got a few more obstacles on the mat here in terms of things to jump around. But this one here, Deep Terror is up next to finish off the round. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to do a -1 attack to all adjacent enemies. Thankfully, we're not adjacent to them, so there's no attacks coming to us. But they are going to do another attack from range, and they're going to try to wound us. Now, this is where things get ugly because this guy here is 1, 2, 3. He is just within range to be able to hit me. So we're going to go ahead and do it, but we'll do it in order. So this is the very first elite. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. He can actually hit the Craighheart as obstacles don't block line of sight. So sadly, he will be able to attack me. So he's going to go ahead and do that attack now. So his regular attack here, being an elite, is a 4, and this does not add or take away from it. So it's a 4 coming at the Craighheart. Now it's a 5. So that's pretty nasty. We're going to have to take that damage, even though I don't want to. That's pretty brutal. I also get wounded, which is also bad. This is going to start to affect me in later rounds. And now the second elite one is going to focus on the Tinker, doing another attack, and it's going to be a 0. Now, and the wound effect is also going to hit him, so he's wounded, but this would give him 4 damage. Now, because the Tinker can't take as much damage, I am going to use the Steel Ring at this point, which will block 4 of the damage from him. Maybe I shouldn't have used it now, that kind of thing, I'm not sure. But just so you guys are aware that the negative condition isn't blocked. You don't block that. That just strictly blocked the 4 attack that came from the Deep Terror. So there we go. We got everything all squared away. This is done. That's essentially the end of the round. So now the other thing that happens that's very important to do at the end of every round going forward is at the end of the first 9 rounds, we have to flip one of these tokens in the back. So I'm going to flip this one. It's a 7. So we're going to have to look at the map and figure out where the 7s are. And the 7 actually lands like this. Holy. So we're going to end up having a whole pile of rocks drop around here, essentially. So a whole bunch of boulders just dropped here, and dropped here. So this map is filling up, and it's filling up quick. Is there any other 7s? Yep, there's one more 7 down there. Sorry guys, didn't mean to elbow the camera. So there's one right here that just dropped, like right in between us. Are there any others? Let's just make sure. No, I think that's it. But that's pretty nasty. Like, look at how clogged up this is all getting. So the whole room's coming down, and everyone's in there fighting it out, but it's a pretty crazy one. So anyway, we're going to wane down the leaf element. There's nothing in terms of short resting at the moment, so we're good there. I'll take a look at the decks to make sure we're shuffled up. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for for waiting for this particular scenario. I really want to say I'm sorry for not getting this one out the door in time, and I will be a little bit behind on it because of personal reasons. I've got some stuff coming up tomorrow, so this one's going to come out. I'm also going to try to film one more right now. But anyway, I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks again for watching, and keep rolling solo.